Studio for the first time. If you get any pop-ups for ADB, please allow them. And you can see in the bottom right of the screen, there's some action. So while there's activity down here, Android Studio is getting set up. It may take a bit extra time for our first project. Subsequent projects should set up a fair bit quicker, so we'll just wait for this activity down here to fully complete. And for me, finally that has completed. It did take quite a long time the first time on this fresh install for all of the downloads and setup to finish. Okay, and finally we are inside Android Studio for the first time, and wow, at this point you may be thinking, what a crazy amount of things to have on the screen, buttons and panels and different sections. At this stage though, please do not worry, we're going to walk through now the three things that we really need. Where do we type our code, where do we keep our project files, and what are the 2 or 3 key actions that we need to do things like running our app and setting up a new emulator or a new virtual device. So bear with me, I'm going to walk you through it right now. So one of the first things you might notice is this big What's New in Giraffe. That's the current version of Android Studio, the What's New section on the right-hand side. Now, there is quite a lot of interesting stuff here. You are free to scroll down and have a look. However, at this stage, I would recommend maybe not to do this. It's going to be talking about a lot of concepts and a lot of tools and technologies that we simply haven't learned yet. Let's just go ahead and close this. And this entire section is part of the Assistant. You can see at the top here next to the What's New tab. And this Assistant panel corresponds to this Assistant bit of text you can see there on the right-hand side. In fact, you can click any of these vertical words on the right-hand side to switch between these side panels, or panes, P-A-N-E, pane. But all we really want to do now is actually just close this side pane altogether. And to do that, you simply click the selected pane again, and then it disappears like that. You can show and hide these panes by selecting and then deselecting them. So with the Assistant pane closed, this is a pretty good place to be. So looking at this, the first section that's hopefully fairly big and obvious to you is this big, slightly darker grey section in the middle. It's got a little bit of text. It's got a couple of tabs at the top for the different files. And this big dark grey area represents our code editor. This is where we're going to be spending the majority of the time in this course, typing code and logic to make our Android apps work. You're able to have multiple files of code open at once, closing them with a cross. I won't go into this activity_main file for now, but we can see at the moment that main activity.java is selected. So this area here is the code editor. The next most important section is on the left here. You can see this left pane, and then this project tab is selected. And this is the project pane. This is the place where all of the files for our app will be located. Now, if you look at the top of this project pane section, you can see it says the word Android there, this Android view of our files. This is Android Studio trying to be helpful, gathering up your files by type in a way that is perhaps a little bit less complicated. You can see there's maybe not so many files here when in this view. However, as a learner and somebody new to Android, this isn't really the best view of our files to work in for our learning and understanding. So something I'd like you to do now, at the very top where it says Android with that drop-down arrow, click that and change the view to Project. And that will show all of our files in collapsed form at the moment. We have this scratches and consoles thing at the bottom that's not important right now, although we will be using that a lot later in the course for practice. There's this external libraries section that we don't really need to use at all for the foreseeable future, but then we have the top folder, which is our project files folder, and you can see the name of our project there, Getting Started. So if we go ahead and open up this section, this is all of our project files, but most importantly, it's our files exactly as they are on our file system. Okay, as a beginner, it looks a little bit more confusing than the Android view. We've got pretty much every single file here, some strange file extensions, .gradle, .bat, .properties. We don't understand every single file just yet, although as we progress through the course, we will start to explore and learn about more and more of these files. But this is a really good view for us to work in. It's going to give us lots and lots of practice in navigating our project, knowing where the various things are stored, and quite soon you'll be fairly quick at moving around within your project files, things like going to the app source files and locating where things like main activity are, which is the file that you can see in the code editor that is open. So for the majority of the course, in our project pane on the left, we will keep it in this project view. So code editor in the middle, project pane on the left, and the final area that is really important is in the top right here, all these little buttons and icons. These are the various tools and primary actions that we can take when making Android apps. And this section I will be referring to as the toolbar. There's quite a few icons and symbols here, some that are available, some that are grayed out, but really at this stage there's only 1 or 2 that's really important to us. Icons to run our project so the app starts and launches, as well as an icon to go into our device manager where we can set up virtual devices or emulators. So there'll be a couple of icons in the toolbar that we'll be using straight away. They're fairly simple to use. We don't really need to worry at all about all of the other icons. As we progress through the course, we will start to explore 1 or 2 more of these when it becomes relevant. There's also things like this drop-down for choosing what device to run the app on. At the moment we don't have any devices as we didn't select a pre-configured Android device when we set up Android Studio, but that's where we would choose or change between different devices that we have available. But really, that's all we need to be concerned about with Android Studio right now. This nice big code editor in the middle where we type out our code, the project pane on the left where all of our app files live, and then the toolbar in the top right. Code editor, project pane, and toolbar. And for now, that's all we need really to get started with making Android apps. So the best thing we can do right now is go ahead and try to run this new project, see what it looks like. And there's 2 different ways that we can run a project within Android Studio. One of those would be to install it to a real phone, if you have an Android phone, and the other way would be to install it to an emulator, or a virtual device. And a virtual device, like the name suggests, is quite simply an Android phone that will show on the screen, like a real phone, but it'll be a virtual phone. And this can be quite convenient to be able to run your project and then see how it looks and have a play with it on the same screen, on the same computer that you're working on. Now, these two terms, virtual device or emulator, for the purpose of this course, they're one and the same thing. I often refer to it as an emulator. Android Studio's technical term is Android Virtual Device, or AVD. So the purpose of this tutorial is to set up a brand new Android Virtual Device or emulator from scratch, showing you how you can do this, and then going ahead and running this project for the first time and seeing what it looks like, this default empty activity. So looking in the top right in the toolbar, lots of buttons and symbols, many of which we won't use for quite a while. But we see we have two drop-downs. One has a little picture of an Android robot with the word app. So this would be kind of what you want to run. In this case, it would be our app, our project, getting started app. And then you have another drop-down where it says no devices. Now, if you had connected a real Android phone to your computer, you may see your phone listed as selected done, or it, or apps, where for the watches, TV, or Android Auto for like an in-car experience. So this is quite a useful feature. If you want to develop an app, you can actually see what it looks like on all these different form factors, all these different devices, without having to go out and buy them all. And that's an incredibly useful thing. So we'll leave the category as phone, and then you get quite a large list of different phones we can use. You can scroll down, you can see there's quite a long list, some generic screen sizes with screen densities, pixel densities, and then towards the top some specific devices. If we scroll up and down the list, we can see the name of the device here. But that's the thing we already hear. It's going to open Google, and this will be because of Play Store Google and most about device. Icon, device with a Play Store icon. I will choose Pixel 4, and then next. And the next screen is about the system image, and that's just a posh way of saying which version of Android do we want to install on our virtual device. Now the very top one, Tiramisu Privacy Sandbox, that looks to me like a playground, maybe a beta version they're developing. So don't touch that. We want one with a definite API level, a definite number here. So API level 33, Tiramisu, this is Android 13. Okay, so we are able to install the latest version of Android, the latest public release, Tiramisu, Android 13, onto our emulator, which is fantastic. So you'll notice that when I select it, I don't really get the option to continue or click finish, and that's because we haven't downloaded this system image yet. So you need to go ahead and click the little download icon next to Tiramisu, and that will go ahead and download the Android 13 system that will be installed onto our virtual device. So click this. And that's going to bring up a downloader, which will download the whole version for Android 13 Tiramisu. It's 1.4 gigabytes, so I'm going to pause the video here and unpause it when this is finished. Okay, so mine's downloaded. It's gone ahead and grabbed the latest version of Android for our emulator. So click finish. And you'll see now if I click around that the Tiramisu version actually now is in bold without the download icon. So that means when I click it, I'm able to continue and click next. So go ahead and do the same. And then you have some file configuration, most of which we don't need to touch. You can give your virtual device a name, AVD name, Android virtual device name. You can go ahead and call it whatever you like, a nickname that makes sense to you. I'm going to leave mine as the default. It's a Pixel 4 with API 33, which is Android 13. It's got some summary of the device we chose, the screen size and the resolution and the density. It confirms the system image Tiramisu that we have on our phone. By default, I want mine to start to portrait when it starts, not landscape, so I'll leave it on portrait. There's not really anything else we need to change. You could go into advanced settings and have a little play with some things like how much memory from your computer will be dedicated to this emulator. But by default, I recommend you don't touch this unless you're running into problems. If you're running into problems, if it's too slow or your computer doesn't work properly, then you might need to change this. But for most people, we don't need to touch any of the advanced settings. So really, creating a virtual device is quite easy. Choose a pre-configured device, select the version of Android you want onto it, give it a name, and then once we've done that, we can click Finish. And then now in our device manager, we have a device listed, the Pixel 4 API 33. And I could close the device manager, open it up, and see the list of all the devices that I've created here. And you'll see the toolbar next to the app dropdown, we actually have a device now in our devices dropdown, okay? Now we could start our emulator one of two ways. We could click the play icon in the device manager, and what that would do is it would launch the virtual device, but it wouldn't start our app. It would just kind of open the emulator on our computer. Or if we clicked the run button in the toolbar, it would both start the emulator, and then it would install our software and run it. So what we'll do actually is we'll just click the play button in the device manager, we'll just start the emulator, boot up Android, and see what happens when we do that. So let's go ahead and click the play button in the device manager. And you'll see that when we do that, we get another side panel at the bottom where it says emulator. And the bottom right of the screen, you can see it's another side panel, a bottom right side panel, okay, as opposed to a top right. So what we'll do is, to make this a bit larger, we will close the device manager now by clicking the device manager side panel, and you'll see the emulator side panel is now the full height. So this is now a virtual device running Android 13, and you can see it starting. Okay, and by the looks of things, it is ready to start playing with. So this emulator works and behaves just like a real phone. So we can do all the things you normally would be able to do with a phone. Like on a Pixel, you can swipe up to access the app menu. So when I click and drag, I get the app menu, and I can click and drag it away. I can open up things like the phone dialer. Okay, I can press the back button, which on a Pixel is a gesture where you swipe from the screen, so clicking and dragging to swipe from the screen. If some of the gestures are quite hard, you see at the top we have a back button, a home button, and a task switcher there you can also use. So for example, I can click the task switcher button and see my recent apps and swipe them away. So we now have an Android 13 emulator that we can play with. So if I go ahead now and click the play button, this will run our app on this new virtual device. So let's do exactly that. Click the play button, which will install and run our Getting Started app on this emulator. If you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see Gradle build running, so it will take a bit of time. This thing called Gradle, which is the system which takes our code and makes an app out of it. Okay, so it's building our code, putting it together, getting ready to install on the phone. And the first time you do this with a new project, it will take a little bit of time. So we'll pause the video until it starts to progress. Okay, that's installing. And then we can see Getting Started app in the toolbar. And if you look in the middle of the screen, we have Hello World. It's a funny tradition with all programming languages that whatever language you code in, whether it's a website, iPhone, Android, most programming languages have some sort of Hello World app. And indeed, we have the words Hello World in the middle of our app there. So this is our default empty activity. This is our new project that we can start playing with. There's just one final thing that I want to show you with the emulator. In recent versions of Android, they include the emulator in this side panel here, so you can show and hide it, and it will show within the Android Studio window. This can be quite useful to have everything you need on the screen. However, in older versions, they used to have it where you could have the emulator as a floating window. Now, personally, I prefer the floating window. It gives me more flexibility to move it wherever I want on the screen, especially as I'm teaching, as I might want to move it to the left or move it to the right. And there is a setting you can go to put it back to being a floating window. You are free to leave it as the side panel, but if you want to copy me, you can make it a floating window also. The way we do that is going to the File menu, and in the File menu we go to Settings. Now there's a whole ton of settings here, but if I type the word emulator in the search box, you can see it gives us Tools Emulator, so I'm going to go ahead and select that. And you can see in this configuration it says Launch in a Tool window. This says enabling this will cause it to launch in a tool window, which basically means one of our side panels. Otherwise, Android Emulator will launch as a standalone application. I prefer to have it as a standalone application. It gives me more flexibility. It means I can drag it around the screen. It's entirely up to you which one you do though, okay? So I'm going to go and unselect this, and then click Apply, and then OK. I'm now going to close the emulator down with the cross button here, so that will get rid of it. Then close the emulator panel. And then now if I go to Device Manager and click Play, it's now going to start it in a floating window like this. Okay, so entirely up to you which one you choose. For the rest of the course, my emulator will be a floating window, just so I can drag it around the screen. So fantastic, you have an emulator, which is all you need now to develop new Android applications and then run them and see how they look, right there on the same computer that you're developing on. Fantastic.
We're now going to install the app on a real phone, a real Android device. So before we go ahead, there are two things you are going to need to be able to do this tutorial. You will need an Android device, either a phone or a tablet, and you will need a USB cable to plug it from your phone into your PC. Okay, so assuming you have those two things, we'll press ahead. The first thing you're going to need to do with the app on your phone is some setup itself. We're going to need to enable a couple of things. Switch over to a screencast of my phone and I'll show you what you'll need to do. Okay, so this is the screencast of my phone. It's a Huawei Mate 20, or Huawei, or however you're supposed to pronounce that. So, very quick recap. On the left we have the project pane, which is our files. We've changed it from Android to project, so the folders and files are exactly as they are on our computer. We've got the big section in the middle, which is our code editor, and we've got the toolbar on the top right. So back to the code editor now. If we look above the big editing area, we can see there's actually two tabs, which reflects two files, main.activity.java and activity_main.xml. Now very soon in the next section we'll be taking a deep dive into what these are and what their purpose is. But on a very simple level, we have main.activity.java, which is our programming code where we make the app do things and react to things. And then we have the activity_main.xml. That's our layout file. That's where we tell Android where we want things on the screen, what we want to put and where. So just to give you a chance to see a couple of new views in the app, let's click now on activity_main.xml. Okay, and again, wow, we've got a whole lot of new stuff and information to look at here. It is now time for the Getting Started section challenge. So this is the opportunity in every section to apply all of the learning in that section in a task that you'll do, hopefully independently, or as independently as possible. All of these challenges will follow the same format, so they will come towards the end of the section. They will have the challenge, the scenario, and then the acceptance criteria. So let's go through this now. So this section's challenge is the Motivational Quote app. So the challenge, we need to create a brand new project from scratch, make a simple change to it, launch it on an emulator, and then launch it on a real device if one is available. So the scenario, we have a client request. Somebody has come to you looking for your services to make an Android app for them, like in the real world. A client wants you to make a new simple quote app. It will only have one screen with a motivational quote for new software developers. So it might be quite appropriate for students on this course. It's just in a prototype stage right now. However, they will come to the office and they want to see it running on your computer. Also, one of the board members may have an Android device, so they want you to be able to install it on a real phone if you have one available. The acceptance criteria. Now, in every section challenge, I will do the acceptance criteria exactly like the real world. In various jobs that I've had, the acceptance criteria is presented in the exact same way. It always starts with the words, "It is done when." This is a checklist of things for you to see if you've completed the challenge or not. So, it is done when there is a brand new project. If you followed from the previous tutorial, you should already be at the new project dialog, ready to go. The app name has the word quote as part of the title, but the exact title is up to you. For example, you can do my quote app or quote for you or whatever you like, as long as the word quote is in there. It is done when the package name follows the Android naming convention of being the reverse domain name plus the name of the app. For example, com.example.myquoteappname. And their domain is wheelofcrazyquotes.com. They may want to publish this on the Google Play Store one day. They want the package name to be unique. So think about how you would do that domain backwards, and then the name of the app. It's done when in the middle of the screen there's some text that displays a motivational quote for software developers. As this is a prototype, it can be any quote, so do a search online and copy any programming quote that you like. So just have a go at changing that text for you and putting in some text of your own. Find a quote that appeals to you, try and personalize it. The learning will stick better if you do. It's done when the app runs and displays on an emulator. We should know how to do this by now. And it's done when the app runs and displays on a real Android device if one is available. So if you have one, do go ahead and try to get it running on your phone.
Okay, so after every challenge overview video like this, I will post all of these 3 slides as an article, so you can go to the next lecture and view that article, have that on your screen, rather than pausing the video. Following that, there will be the solution, which will be like a code along. So do try this yourself.
Quand je venais de péter un truc, je t'appelais quand je devais le vendre. Et je le faisais par loyauté, simplement parce que t'étais le sang. Je devais représenter le clan pour comprendre, faut avoir un pied dedans. Il faut comprendre les larmes, les cris juste avant les saignements. Je marche avec une lame sur moi, mon pote a une lame sur lui. C'est le putain d'instinct de survie. On parle mais on assumera. Rêve de thunes, rêve de billets. Les lieux de culte perdent leurs fidèles. Dans tous les coins, dans toutes les obédiences. Y'a que dans le crime que j'ai des connaissances. J'ai vu des cafards courir et déblatérer. C'est horrible. Gros comprends que je suis pas là pour déblatérer. Des conneries. En studio comme un cool Yakan. Un laboratoire où on coupe la cam. Si je deviens méchant c'est juste pour le travail. On se faisait chier, faire du son, c'était le plan. En cours, j'étais au fond, dans les embrouilles, j'étais devant. Tu sais, c'est magique, y a pas besoin de forcer. En 2 semaines, le métier rentre. J'essaie de changer, vivre de ma passion, j'ai cette chance. On se faisait chier, faire du son, c'était le plan. En cours, j'étais au fond, dans les embrouilles, j'étais devant. Tu sais, c'est magique, y a pas besoin de forcer. En 2 semaines, le métier rentre. J'essaie de changer, vivre de ma passion, j'ai cette chance. Faut que je le fasse, qu'il vente ou qu'il pleuve. Je connais le plan,
Hi, welcome
la fin
back.
du film.
How did you do? Did you manage to do the whole thing in one go? Did you need to look back at the videos? Or
À 15 pigeons m'a mis
don't
dehors.
forget my
J'avais rien fait pour mériter ça.
some of
J'ai
the
la
way
meilleure
the
grand-mère du monde. J'ai rien fait pour mériter ça. Gros, je vais pas être rempli que faire appliquer ce que le règlement stipule. Les enfants détestent en bitume. Je faisais pour 1200 € par mois.
I promise if I
Je te cache
swipe
pas
down
qu'aurais
to the
pas de
menu,
famille, je me sentais sur le banc ou en tribune.